Welcome to Football Conspiracies.
I'm Jared Cole.
And I'm Jared Rabinovich.
This week's episode, the Super Bowl logo conspiracy.
For today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl logo conspiracy. I know you've heard of this one.
Like the recent one.
Of course.
Okay. Yeah.
And the reason we're picking this for the first episode is actually a couple of reasons. I think the first one is, this is what we started talking about football conspiracies about. Obviously, we had a couple of discussions before this, but when we saw this come up earlier in the NFL season this year, we had a lot of discussions about this, and it kind of prompted us to get to the point where we thought, man, a podcast needs to be made about all the conspiracies in the NFL. The second reason is because this is probably the most famous NFL conspiracy of our time. Like, I don't know if you can think of anything more than this, but as far as I can tell, this has been covered by the most mainstream outlets.
Social media love this.
Exactly.
And I love it too, because it's kind of true.
I mean, we could get into that in a minute. So, for those of you who don't know what the Super Bowl logo conspiracy is, let me just do a quick explanation for you. So, for the past few Super Bowls, starting at Super Bowl 56 between the Bengals and the Rams, people are saying that the colors of the Super Bowl logo indicate who will inevitably play in the Super Bowl. In Super Bowl 56, we had the Bengals and the Rams play, and the logo was orange and yellow. The next year, we had the Eagles play versus the Chiefs, and once again, it was a teal versus a red. And then this year, before Super Bowl 58 happened, and this conspiracy came to light, people were saying that the purple and red logo indicated that it was going to be the Ravens versus the Niners. You're obviously...
Yeah. And unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Unfortunately, agreed.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you heard of like the further fold in the theory where some people were saying the team with the color on the bottom is going to be the winning team. So for viewers, obviously this is a visual cue. I recommend looking up the Super Bowl logo conspiracy if you're not familiar with it, just so you understand exactly what we're talking about. There's a lot of graphics that will easily show you what's going on. So I don't know if you're familiar with the further fold.
Yeah.
The Rams won and the yellow was on the bottom. 2023, the red was on the bottom and the Chiefs won. So we were saying the Ravens were going to win this year.
Okay.
Obviously, we do want to talk about the fact, as J. Cole did mention, the Super Bowl 58 contenders did not align with the preordained color scheme. That being said, this has not stopped conspiracy theorists from adjusting their ideas in order to make them fit the reality. We'll talk a little bit more about this later. So, while most NFL conspiracies, particularly ones this silly in nature, go unnoticed, this one was actually covered by many mainstream outlets, right?
Yeah, I saw it all over Instagram and Twitter, and when it was going on, especially when playoffs were coming around and these teams were doing really well.
Absolutely, yeah. But it's one thing when Twitter and Instagram hops on a bandwagon, like we especially Twitter these days, we see them talking about absolute lunacy.
Everything.
Exactly.
Anything and everything.
Especially when it comes to conspiracy in the NFL. They love to go crazy on that stuff.
Of course.
But this one kind of broke out of the Twitter sphere, if you will. A lot of mainstream outlets were talking about it. Sports Illustrated published an article called, "Can We Talk About the Super Bowl Logo Color Scheme Conspiracy?" CNN published, "Why There's More Than Meets the Eye to the Colors of the Super Bowl Logo."
No way CNN actually...
No, you want to know something better about this fucking article by CNN?
Yeah.
The webpage for this article, at least when the search was conducted, which I want to say was about 2 weeks ago, contains a byline, shows who it's by, where it was written, the date it was written, but there's no article. It's completely empty. It's just a headline and a byline. Thanks, CNN.
Wow, so much information.
I know, right? But probably the best article I found was from CBS Sports, which was titled, "Aaron Rodgers Puts Spotlight on Super Bowl Logo Conspiracy Theory. Wants 2025 logo to be quote-unquote jet green." Got that one?
Of course, why not bring up Aaron Rodgers?
Well, I mean, you got it.
Yeah.
It's an NFL conspiracy show.
Yeah.
But a choice quote from the article, which was them quoting Rodgers' appearance on the Pat McAfee show. This is from Rodgers' mouth. "If the Super Bowl is Baltimore and San Fran, then I'll tell you what Super Bowl 59 emblem better have jet green on it," Rodgers said. McAfee looked befuddled by the comment, and Rodgers replied with some specific instruction. "Just look at the colors," Rodgers said. "Look at the colors."
Look at the colors.
So... like I said earlier, Twitter talking about it is one thing, and the mainstream outlets talking about it is a whole nother, but Aaron Rodgers going on Pat McAfee and claiming that this is a real theory, That instills some confidence in the league.
Oh, I'm sure it does.
3-time
Definitely.
MVP?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah,
Love that.
he knows what he's talking about.
Exactly. So trying to figure out where the origin of this conspiracy theory was actually a little bit of a struggle. I'm not 100% sure I'm right about this, but so forewarning for the audience, this is some unconfirmed reporting. I did read an article that said the conspiracy was created by an account called @NFL_memes on Twitter. That being said, I tried to reach out to the creator of this account. I DM'd him, I emailed him, and I unfortunately received no response. So, as far as we know, this is the best source for who actually created this theory to begin with, but I have no real information of whether this was truly him or not. And @NFL_memes, if you're listening now, would love to chat. Let me know. But in terms of who actually created this, yeah, it could have been some Reddit troll, some 4chan troll, which was picked up by his Twitter account, but realistically, as far as we can tell, it was this guy. The Twitter account has 1.4 million followers, so not like a small account, exactly. The bio is, "We make fun of your favorite football team, not affiliated with the NFL," in brackets, in case you're wondering. And it's dedicated to creating NFL memes, none of which are terribly noteworthy. Some of them are kind of silly and fun. I have some examples of content if you want to explain it to the audience here. So what's this first one we're looking at?
So here's a tweet, April 22nd. First look at Zach Wilson's new Denver Broncos jersey. Oh, MILF Hunter.
Oh, yeah.
Classic.
The new Zach Wilson Broncos jersey, his number, and MILF Hunter instead of Wilson, which is, some classic @NFL_memes content.
We got, March 31st, they posted, the PS5 recently updated the cover for Need for Speed, covering all the young wide receivers of the past couple of years who have shown their lack of ability to read road signs.
Yes. And these posts had 1.3 and 2.6 million impressions respectively, and 9.2 and 30K likes respectively. So, this account isn't anything small. It's pretty relevant in this space. So he was the one to create this theory. It blew up like wildfire.
There you go.
A lot of people follow this. Or, if, like you said, he was just someone who
found it and reposted it. He still gave it the exposure so that people started to look into it.
Absolutely. Okay. So we think this is the origin. Once again, if you want to reach out to me and we could chat, would love to interview you.
Honestly, yeah.
That'd be great.
100%.
Exactly. Respond to that email or that DM. But for now, this is the extent of the information I could give the audience. Like I said, this quickly became a pretty infamous theory. It's being spoken about by many large names in the NFL extended universe. But to the viewing public, this theory was like absolute catnip. It's the perfect conspiracy to blow up and catch the attention of a wider audience for a few reasons. So the following is a bit of editorializing from yours truly, but this is based on my experience studying conspiracies and looking at this theory. This is why I believe this was so popular.
Okay.
So the first reason was because it's easy to interpret, right? The nature of the theory is such that many outcomes could take place, and the theory could still be true.
Yeah.
People can bake this in any which way they want.
Yeah, I mean, you show red and blue. There's a ton of teams that are red. Exactly. There's a ton of teams that are blue.
Exactly. Like everyone wants their team to be the winner. If you see your team's color in there, maybe that spark of hope makes you want to believe a little bit more, right? It's also, this prediction was made pretty early during the playoffs, so there was a limited number of teams at the point, but, the point still stands. Red could have been pretty much anyone. The purple was going to be the Ravens, quite clearly, and that was the big bust of the theory, I would say. But the alternate logo had, like, a blue and a red in it, which could have been, it could have been the Bills, it could have been the Cowboys, it could have been the Chiefs, it could have been any. The second reason why I think this blew up so much is that it's easy to understand. The proof, if you will, is simple, unlike many other conspiracies. You look at these other conspiracies, outside the realm of the NFL, or even within the realm of the NFL.
Yeah, it's a very easy conspiracy to understand. Exactly. Very surface level. Exactly. It's colors, you see it right there.
Exactly, like that graphic I showed you and maybe our viewers looked up earlier. It's pretty simple to understand. You can grasp it very easily. You don't need anyone to explain to you any finer details. Someone who knows nothing about the NFL can very quickly understand, oh, I see the pattern here.
Yeah.
Unlike, I don't know if you've heard some of the theories about like magnetic gloves and balls in the NFL. That's a little, harder to get someone to believe or at least understand in any significant way. But also more on that in another episode. And the last reason is because, and I think this is the most important, it's easy to make fun of.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, conspiracy theories often become big when they're easy to talk about, easy to make fun of. And this one was obvious. It's sheer stupidity. You don't have to dig any further. Everyone knows, if you have any sense, that this was just complete bullshit. And unless you had these wider theories about the NFL being scripted and all of that, it's kind of a cool coincidence, but there's nothing beyond that, right?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. I think it takes a deeper looking into, because it was right. I mean, going 5 for 6 is not something to joke about.
Who going 5 for 6?
The NFL logos.
The NFL logos?
The Super Bowl logos.
They went 2 for 3.
No, they correctly predicted the first 2, which gives them 4 teams. Plus they got the 49ers for this year. So, I mean, and they also had the 49ers losing because they were the team on top. So not only did they have the 49ers being the losing team, they also correctly predicted 5 of the last 6 teams to make the Super Bowl. I don't know. It gives them pretty good odds that hopefully the next logo they'll be right.
I take your point.
I think there's something to it.
I take your point, but what about the Ravens? Everyone just trying to fuck over Baltimore like that?
Hear me out. Maybe it's not 100%, but I still think that it's...
So who do you think is behind this? Is it Roger himself? Is it
no? This
is it script makers?
I think this is a little too low for Roger's pay level. This is some inside work from the NFL, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Personally, I think it's some silliness, but anything is possible. At this point in the conspiracy is when what I like to call the cycle of conspiracy begins. So let me explain this to the viewers a little bit so you can understand why I think this caught on so quickly, why this was like wildfire in the NFL community. So I made this little cycle of conspiracy, and let's see, I'll explain it to the viewer. Try to imagine a wheel or cycle in your mind where the first prong is new lore, meaning new lore is created in the conspiracy theory world. This being that these logos line up and that the Ravens and the 49ers were going to be the teams in the Super Bowl. Next, that would move on to the adoption of beliefs. So ostensibly at NFL_memes creates this theory, and then people start adopting it. Some people on the fringes kind of think it's funny. Some people on the fringes actually do believe it, and it starts popularizing. The next thing is something goes wrong, where, oh no, the Ravens lost. There's no more purple teams in the playoffs. What's going to happen? So what do? They adjust the lore so that makes more sense. Oh, there's a new alternate logo out, guys. This one actually does line up with the teams. And then we have new lore, and we go back into the cycle of conspiracy. Does that make sense?
That makes a very, very good sense.
So, yeah, I think that's like a pretty good summation of why it became so popular.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just so easy to adjust and continue allowing to go through this cycle and just be a mill of conspiracy. So, like I was saying, there's a lot of adjustments as to why, in order to justify this conspiracy theory. Many solutions have been posited to help explain this theory falling apart. A lot of people have been saying, they put an alternate logo, which does line up with the teams that ended up making it. But in the end of the day, this was a fan-made colorway logo. If this fan had any deep inside information, once again, reach out to me. I'd love to chat with you, man. You are something else. And the more popular theory that, I don't know if you saw this parroted in a lot of, TikToks and Twitter and Reels, was the script had to be changed because too many people were onto it. Did you see any of that?
No.
Oh, really? So the moment the Ravens got off, I started seeing like a lot of posts cropping up about how so many people caught on to this theory, became too popular, so the NFL had to change course, and that's why the Ravens ended up losing.
It makes perfect sense.
Yes, I mean, it makes sense in the conspiracy mind, but if they really, planned so long for the Ravens to make it, and they just had to change on a dime like that, you'd think there'd be a little more discordancy within the NFL. That being said, anything's possible, but realistically, this is just a pretty convenient way to explain away why your theory didn't end up making sense and coming true. See a lot of similar things happening in the QAnon community and things like this, where the moment something goes wrong, it's pretty easy to adjust a couple of things to make sure that your cycle of conspiracy continues milling.
Yeah, I mean, you go back, like, what was it, 5 minutes in this podcast to watch me try to justify why it didn't work, and then he pulls out this fucking cycle of conspiracy. Yeah, but it is real. It's not a conspiracy.
We can continue to disagree on that one, but you know what? Some friendly disagreement is what makes this country strong. This
Yeah.
country being Canada. Thought we could do a little bit more baking on our own because
Okay.
that's something we like to do.
Yeah.
And clearly this is something that hits closer to home for you. So I thought that maybe me and you could start conspiracies for next year and talk about the Super Bowl 59 logo.
Okay.
So right
Okay.
now I got a picture pulled up. J. Cole, can you describe to listeners what this logo looks like?
It's got a pretty cool design, actually. The Super Bowl 59 with green, it looks like, more on the bottom, and a red
Yeah, and like
over
a
top. Like,
purplish background.
yeah, purple background.
Kind of has like a cool
So
paisley design on the letters.
that's
It's
the word.
yeah,
Then,
it's
yeah.
trying to be New Orleans themed because that's where the Super Bowl is going to be played next year.
Makes sense.
So this Reddit post that I found talking about this, just to get this, this conspiracies, this baking started for us,
Mhm.
is from r/Miami Dolphins on Reddit. And it says official Super Bowl logo for next year. Am I delusional or could this be Dolphins? The green looks pretty close to the Fins aqua. Past logo colors haven't been always exact, and 49ers the red. Also, I don't see it, but an article said there was a shade of orange in there too. So that's his theory for why it must be the Dolphins. I
Okay.
personally don't see a shade of orange, and I think to say that green is anything like the Dolphins aqua is a huge stretch. And I'm colorblind and I'm saying that.
I mean, it doesn't look blue enough to be, but I could see the Dolphins making it to the Super Bowl low-key. I don't think that is Dolphins green.
I see it as Packers yellow far before I see it as.
You know what? I kind of see the green and yellow mixed in there.
That's what I'm saying. Right? That color to me looks like it'd be like a Packers yellow, 49ers. See the Packers 49ers.
So the green teams would be Dolphins, Jets, Philly, Green Bay. And the red team, I mean, there's lots of red
It can only
teams.
be
Like,
Green Bay and the Dolphins, right? Like it's not Jets green.
well, I mean, it's green. I mean, I don't know. I mean, how specific can we really get? I
I
mean,
mean, if you're listening to U/NBA Young Summer ratio, he thinks the teal is close enough to the aqua.
I mean, maybe that's a Dolphins Bucks Super Bowl we're throwing out
The
there.
Dolphins Bucks Super Bowl.
Yeah, why not?
Wow,
Battle of
you're
Florida.
really good for your team over there.
Yeah, no, it's probably. I mean, if the red is NFC, it has to be 49ers because the Cardinals aren't making it to the Super Bowl, and the Cardinals aren't even going to make it to the playoffs, and the Bucks aren't going to make it to the playoffs this year
Talk shit
either.
about my boy Kyler like that.
Dude runs like a toddler.
So now that we've done our baking of the next year logo, our irresponsible baking of the next year logo, it's time to move on a little bit back to last year or to this year's Super Bowl and ask my biggest question about the Super Bowl logo conspiracy. Just
Okay.
why? You know?
What do you mean?
Why? Why this theory that became so big? Why have people caught on to this? Why do people care about it at all? I have so many questions as to like why this was the popular theory and why so many people resonated with it, either to fight for it or against it.
I think the big fight for it was because when everyone saw that purple, they were like, finally, the Chiefs aren't going to be making it to the Super Bowl.
That's fair.
We don't want, sorry to Chiefs fans, but people wanted something a little different. And when they saw the purple, they were like, oh, maybe we get that this year.
So do you think it had to do with like, it was for a sense of hope?
Yeah.
You know, the NFL fan base just desperately didn't want to see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl again. So the moment we saw that purple in there and thought it could only be the Ravens, people were like, I want this to be true, so I'm going to trick myself into believing it's true.
if you look at who people were cheering for when it came to the last Super Bowl, when it was 49ers and Chiefs, the only people cheering for the Chiefs were Chiefs fans and Taylor Swift fans. Like the rest of everyone else who watches football wanted the 49ers to win just to have something different.
Yeah, I think that's a fair argument, just the idea of hope and NFL fans wanting anything except a Chiefs dynasty and us glomming onto this because this was the only shred of hope that we had.
Yeah, it's like what? There's been two Super Bowls in the past 5 years where Patrick Mahomes didn't win. Like people
And he
wanted
was in
something
them.
different. Then he was in four out of the
He was
five
in
of
one of them,
them.
yeah.
Like people wanted something a little different. I don't blame them. That's what I
I wanted
wanted.
it too. Yeah. But either way, well, my biggest question as to why, the more and more I look at this, kind of the stupider it gets for me. And not to disparage your arguments from earlier in this conversation, but just there's so many things about it that don't make sense to me. And just the more that you think about it, the more it falls apart. And let me dig into that. So many theories, most of the ones that we'll discuss on this show, have a clear motive behind them. This is clearly lacking that, unless you believe that this is part of the larger theory of the NFL being scripted. I understand how this is part of like a sort of predictive programming angle that some conspiracy theorists might take in terms of the NFL and its functioning. But unless you believe this larger theory about the NFL being scripted, the idea that the teams are being revealed to us like this in the Super Bowl is a little bit out there. And like I was saying, the reality is if the NFL was really rigging the Super Bowl, why would they leave a way for people to find out about it? This is an issue I have with so many conspiracy theories that I study. People saying, oh, the evil people in charge need to leave signs. It's part of the rules. But if these people they're clearly tyrants who are trying to take away something from us in some way, why do they believe there's like these cosmic rules that they have to follow? It makes no sense. If the NFL was really trying to script the NFL, why would they give us any way to figure it out, especially one this obvious? Right?
Yeah. I mean, I was also just thinking right now, they could probably also they look at the standings and they look who's probably going to do well and they see like which teams and then they add those colors into the Super Bowl logo because it's like people know the Ravens are going to play well. People know the 49ers are going to play well. We throw those teams on the Super Bowl logo because people know those are good teams, which makes them think.
Absolutely. And I think that's actually a really good way to look at it. Because if this is some sort of practice in guerrilla marketing where the NFL is trying to get us to speculate, trying to make them feel like they're rigging it, because look about how many people are talking about this. Look about how much traction the NFL got from people talking about the Super Bowl logo.
Yeah, it's like
if this is some way that they're, let's put the two most likely colors on there, red and a blue, because anyone could do a red and a blue, or whatever it is, maybe that's their way of gaining traction from us. It's not true, and they're not rigging it from their end, but it's a brilliant marketing strategy if that's what they're doing.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, have you looked at the logo for the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs this year?
Not,
Or did you look at the World Series logo last year?
no, did they both align with the...
No, they were just normal, boring logos, but
No one's
no one's looking at them. You got people talking about the Super Bowl, people talking about the NFL,
Yeah,
especially leading up to the games. And you said this post was at the beginning of the playoffs,
that's right.
so then gets people excited for the playoffs and their team. NFL memes. Are you working for the NFL? Or you say you're not affiliated, but are you?
Yeah, come on. It says in his bio. I really want this conversation. Please reach out to us. Someone, I know one of you guys knows him. Please get me in contact with @NFL_memes on Twitter. And like I was saying, I want to make my thoughts about this conspiracy pretty clear, which is I've been talking a lot of shit about it, but I want to say something. This is not a dangerous belief to hold in and of itself, if you are someone who holds this belief. But I think the ramifications of it is what is important. Silly, harmless theories on its own, but it connects to the larger theory about how the NFL is scripted, which also, on its own, could be a pretty silly and harmless theory. But a lot of people connect how the NFL is scripted to an even wider set of theories about how there's corruption within the American entertainment industry, which leads to how there's corruption within the mass media and how there's corruption within the government. And yes, I think all of those things that I stated are absolutely true. But the idea that they're connected to the NFL logos is cockamamie.
Oh,
It's
okay,
absurd.
yeah. I mean, if we're gonna go all the way to that level,
Exactly. And like I said, I'm not saying that we shouldn't question authorities. As a matter of fact, I think it's pretty necessary for a functioning society. But the pervasiveness of theories like this only serve to infect society with more conspiracy and erodes our ability to absorb good information. It's a shifting of the Overton window where we were never talking about things this absurd a few years ago, but now that this is within the public consciousness, things like, are the colors in the NFL logo predictive programming to the rest of the American public? These are conversation points that are actually on the table.
Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah, that's what's scary. It's
Yeah.
not that things like this are dangerous in and of themselves. I think they're pretty funny and harmless, and I love talking about them. That's why we're here. But the effects that believing things like this can have on some people who maybe are more vulnerable to be pulled in by conspiracies, that's what I worry about.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day, these are conspiracies. Like these
Yeah.
aren't real. Nothing's
Yes,
proven.
yes.
These aren't facts. Like this is just two guys joking around about some NFL bullshit.
Exactly.
That could be real, but I mean,
Make your own decision based off of the
Yeah.
facts we've discussed in this episode.
exactly.
Before I close out, I just want to make one thing very clear. The person who runs at NFL_memes who created this is absolutely not at fault. It is the fault of the mainstream media for having covered this so widely, and people like Aaron Rodgers and Pat McAfee for putting a bullhorn on something like this. This is absolutely not a small Twitter account's fault, and I don't want to put any blame on this person. They were truly just making content, and in my opinion, pretty good content.
Yes, very good content. I follow them on Twitter. So.
Exactly, yeah. So, in closing, TikTok and Twitter conspiracy theories should stay exactly where they're meant to be, on TikTok and Twitter.
Yeah.
So, before we actually close out this segment of the episode, I just want to talk about some of the wackier stuff I found while doing research for this episode. I found this one Reddit post. Do you want to describe this to the viewers?
All right. It looks like CTV News.
CTV Vancouver, which is a news station out of our home country, Canada, to be clear, not an American station where the NFL is solely based.
On January 18th. This is a full month before the Super Bowl. Posted that Reba McEntire, Usher, and Post Malone are slated to perform at San Francisco 49ers and Baltimore Ravens Super Bowl matchup on February 11th. Well, what did CTV News claim they know?
They claim that this was just a editing error on the Chiron. They did not meant to post this, but obviously a lot of people started baking this immediately.
Oh,
Those are the two teams that we've been predicting are going to be in the Super Bowl, and now CTV Vancouver's telling us, so it must be true.
Of course.
So I saw a couple of things. One comment that someone left on it that I thought was worth pointing out. Something I mentioned earlier is from remote_boss 9317. I don't want to burst anyone's bubble, but this news station is Canadian. I'm going to take a wild guess they don't follow American football as much as Americans do. So they saw the two teams that are highly projected to make the bowl and used that. Well, I don't agree with his reasoning behind why they screwed up the Chiron editing. I do agree with the fact that this is a Canadian station, and as a Canadian, I can confirm they will not be talking about American football nearly as much, especially on a station like CTV, where the main use of it is to get your weather forecast.
Yes, that is very true. I think it's kind of crazy that someone who works at CTV Vancouver definitely follows NFL memes, knew this trend was going around, and had to fill something in and just filled it in as a joke, like they were gonna delete it later. Like they just filled it in because like why not? And then it actually got posted, like actually went on air live.
And then they lost their job.
Well, I mean,
some lowly intern who's just making a joke.
Hopefully they didn't lose their job, but they definitely might have gotten in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, probably. Another Reddit user on this thread by the name of u/skywalk910 said something I found pretty interesting, which is, my theory is this is 100% about betting. They want people to bet on these two teams so people can hammer the odds on the underdogs. NFL isn't scripted, pulling for you guys today. Edit, just to elaborate. My guess is there is some degenerate gambler out there who got a hold of the prompter and made this change, or someone just sucks at their job. So I think the idea that this is a theory created by people who are trying to hammer the under, I think that's kind of interesting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, because I mean, on January 18th, you see that you place bets. Baltimore is going to have pretty good odds to win the
Exactly.
Super Bowl. Like, well, I mean, like, pretty good odds for the better. Like,
Exactly.
they'll be
Yeah.
extreme. Like, same with the 49ers, because there's still so many teams in the playoffs. So you get these people to bet their money on the 49ers and the
Exactly.
Ravens, and then ultimately it's the Chiefs that win anyways.
So the question is, was this astroturfed by like DraftKings or were they trying to get us all to bet on the Ravens just so they can steal our money?
FanDuel pays for CTV Vancouver.
Yeah, exactly. And another Reddit post I found that I thought was a little wacky was this person r/distractible named u/blueberry batter who posted this titled "Superb Owl Conspiracy." It's quite possible that the logo color elements are chosen due to algorithms. You can't tell me that a multi-billion-dollar entity of the NFL doesn't have in their employ some programming geniuses who have written some algorithms that predict the most likely outcome for who will be the last two teams standing. Feed a program as much information on plays over time across all teams, you'll get a statistically high outcome that X and Y will be the contenders. Conspiracy adjacent, but not like ... scripted. So what do you think about that?
I mean, I said that basically earlier in the podcast.
You did.
Yeah, this guy stole my idea.
But what do you think of the idea that they're using AI to predict who is going to be doing it? I agree, what we discussed earlier, what you brought up about, marketing teams doing this and studying what's most likely.
I mean, I don't think they need a computer and an algorithm to do this. I think they just ask a guy who knows a lot about football and go, hey, who do you think the AFC champion is going to be? Hey, who do you think the NFC championship is going to be? Okay, now throw those colors on a logo. Like, I feel like it is that simple.
Then maybe you might agree with our boy u/scrunge1576 over here, who commented on this post. I think the real answer here is simply this. At the beginning of each playoff season, they make several different graphic designs with all the variations based on who may be going to the Super Bowl. When the final two are announced, they know which one to use and ditch the rest. This year, one got accidentally released. Things are always so much more simple than people make them out to be.
No, I don't think anything got accidentally released.
I agree.
I also think, why would they bother making that many logos just to funnel through? They also released a logo at the beginning of the playoffs, not at the end.
Yeah.
So that...
No, I guess you're right. This one's a little bit of a dud. Sorry, Scrunch. We tried our best on here. But that is all I have to speak about the Super Bowl logo conspiracy. Is there anything else that you have to say?
I would like to say that I came into this podcast believing that the Super Bowl logo conspiracy might have some backing to it, but now I just think it's some dude who might know a lot about the NFL, who's also a graphic designer for the NFL. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that might be a conclusion that we could agree upon. If there is anything nefarious going on here, it's just some guerrilla marketing on the part of the NFL.
Exactly.
So that is it for the main segment of the podcast. Now I'm going to throw it off to J. Cole.
All right, so for the first one, I want to talk to you about the 2023 49ers. Okay, because they were a cursed team. As in, they cursed other teams, not that they themselves were cursed.
Like this most recent...
Like this...
the Super Bowl 49ers of this year.
Yeah. They cursed teams. Okay.
I'm ready to hear this one.
Okay, so every time a team beats the 49ers, or at least beat them during the regular season, their quarterback suffered a season-ending injury. Okay? But... here's the thing. It only happened when the 49ers scored exactly 17 points in their loss.
Okay, so how many times did this happen?
It happened 3 times.
Okay, so tell me the occurrence.
So the first time happened week 6, October 15th. 49ers face off against Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, nail-biter game, final score 19-17 Browns. Okay?
Yep.
exactly 1 month later, on November 15th, the Browns announced Deshaun Watson will be sidelined with a season-ending shoulder injury.
Yeah, I recall, of course.
Yeah.
But
Next week, October 23rd, week 7, Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings face off against the 49ers. The 49ers lose again with a final score of 22-17. The very next week, Kirk Cousins goes down with a torn Achilles.
No way.
Okay, so once is just a thing.
Yeah,
Twice is a coincidence. 3 times is a pattern.
sure.
Now to the third time. October 29th, the very next week. So this happened 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
Week 8, Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals face off against the 49ers. Destroy them 31-17. 3 weeks later, Joe Burrow tears a ligament in his wrist.
Yeah, I know. That's pretty wild. You think it's Roger getting up to some hijinks?
So I actually do, because
You do?
it almost happened a fourth time.
Did they lose by 17 again?
Okay, so we're going to go all the way to week 16. Okay,
Sure.
December 25th. 49ers face off against the Baltimore Ravens. Bizarre twist at the very beginning of the game. Lamar Jackson's in his own end zone, and the referee trips him, resulting in a 49ers safety. Final score, Ravens win 33-19.
Oh.
Did the ref know about this and purposefully do it to save Lamar Jackson because of his end of season tear that resulted in an MVP season? Were they trying to save the MVP season of Lamar Jackson?
Well, I don't know. I have a few issues with this season. Love the pattern, don't get me wrong. But you think it was the 49ers going after their competition, just pissed off at the numerology of it all?
I don't know. I think it's a curse. I think
You think it's a curse?
yes.
Did this happen at all in the previous seasons, or this is just the 2023 Niners brought Purdy after his competition?
No, this is the 2023 49ers just trying to get rid of their competition.
This is awesome. Good
Yes.
for that ref saving Lamar Jackson.
Yeah. Lamar Jackson saved by a ref.
No, that's a wild tidbit you found there.
Yeah, crazy.
All right.
Ridiculous.
No, that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode.
You can find us on Twitter/X at FB Conspiracies, where we will post all the graphics we spoke about during this episode.
You can also reach us by email using fbconspiracies@gmail.com.
A special thanks to Blaze for the intro and outro music.
If you enjoyed, consider leaving a review.
Join us next week for more football conspiracies.
Like a clip with dead music, just like of us saying some stupid bullshit, like one of us saying something. Like I love when podcasts do that. I know